In today's video, we're talking about phrasal verbs in practice with a story called Together We Grow. Lila, Amir, and Sophie were three IELTS learners from different corners of the world, united by their dream of mastering English and passing the IELTS exam. They had all enrolled in an online IELTS course, logging in each week from their homes to attend live classes, though they lived very far apart. Lila in a small apartment in Brazil, Amir in a busy city in India, and Sophie in a quiet farm in Australia. They formed a tight-knit study group determined to carry on with their goals together. Their online classes were lively, with a teacher who loved to bring up different topics to discuss. One day, the teacher came up with a challenge: form small groups and create a study plan to practice English outside of class. Immediately, Lila, Amir, and Sophia decided to team up. They exchanged contact details and promised to call back each other regularly to stay motivated. Their plan was simple but effective: watch classes online, study at home, and practice English while traveling or during daily routines, looking at YouTube channels and listening whilst practicing activities together. Lila loved to check out new vocabulary apps on her phone while commuting to work. One morning, while on a crowded bus, she came across a phrasal verb quiz on a YouTube channel that she liked, that tested words like cut off and break out. She jotted down notes in her journal, determined to carry out her goal of learning 5 new phrasal verbs each day. When her bus suddenly broke down, she didn't panic. Instead, she used the time to review her notes, turning a frustrating moment into a chance to study and improve. Amir, who often travelled for his job, made a habit of practicing English on the go. While waiting at the airport, he would check in online for his flight and then listen to IELTS YouTube courses. One day, he came up with a clever idea: record himself speaking about his day and share it with the group. Sophie and Lila loved the recordings and started doing the same, sending messages on WhatsApp. They could always count on Amir to share creative ways to practice, even with his busy schedule cut off his study time. Sophie, who lived far from the city, sometimes felt isolated, but the online classes and online videos that she watched with the study group backed her up when she felt discouraged. One evening, while watching a class, her internet connection broke down. She felt upset, worried she'd fall behind. Instead of giving up, she carried on by reviewing her notes offline. The next day, she messaged Lila and Amir, who called her back with encouragement and shared their classes' notes. Sophie realized she could count on her friends no matter the distance. The group decided to carry out a weekly challenge to make studying fun. They would pick a topic like travel or food and use their phrasal verbs YouTube channel that they really enjoy in a short story or conversation. One week, Lila wrote about a traveler who broke out of a boring routine by exploring a new city. Amir shared a story about a chef who came up with a new recipe after his oven broke down. Sophie described a farmer who checked out a mysterious noise in the barn only to come across a lost kitten. They laughed over their stories during their weekly video calls, which they never called off, no matter how busy they were. One day, Amir brought up a bold idea that they should meet in person one day, maybe after their IELTS exams. Lila and Sophie loved the idea but were nervous about the cost. Still, they asked each other out for a virtual study trip instead, pretending they were traveling together. They watched a travel documentary and practiced describing it using phrasal verbs like carry on and check out. It felt like a real adventure, and it motivated them to keep studying. As their IELTS exam day approached, the group worked harder. Lila cut out distractions like TV and only listened to social media and YouTube channels that helped her with her IELTS practice. Amir, always reliable, backed up their study materials on a shared drive so they could access them anywhere they went. Sophie carried out mock speaking tests, recording herself and sharing the files with the group. When Sophie's microphone broke down during a practice session, Lila and Amir backed her up by sending her tips to improve her pronunciation without fancy equipment. One evening while studying, Lila's laptop battery cut off unexpectedly. She felt a moment of panic, but then she remembered she could count on her group. She messaged Amir and Sophie, who sent her their notes and even called to explain a tricky grammar point. The next day, Lila checked out a local library to continue her studies, grateful for her friend's support. The group's hard work paid off. When the IELTS exam day arrived, they were ready and they felt ready. Lila checked in at her test centre in Brazil, feeling nervous but confident. Amir in India carried on calmly through his reading section. Sophie in Australia smiled as she answered speaking questions, remembering the phrasal verbs she'd practiced. They had all come up with strategies to stay focused, like taking deep breaths and recalling their study group's encouragement. Weeks later, the results arrived. Leela, Amir, and Sophie each passed with very high scores. They celebrated over a voice video call, cheering and laughing about how far they'd come. Amir brought up their idea of meeting in person, and this time they agreed to make it happen. They planned a trip for the following year, promising to carry out their dream of celebrating together. Their journey wasn't just about passing an exam. By studying together online, at home, and while traveling, they learned to count on each other and themselves. They broke out of their doubts and fears, building not just English skills, but also a friendship they felt like family. As they carried on with their lives, they knew that this was just the beginning of many more adventures together.